Hi, it's Sam from Tarot for Writing, and I'm back with you today for another tarot card deep dive or tarot card exploration. Today, we're going to take a look at the Five of Wands. And just as a quick reminder, this is a challenge put together from Esther over at Mindful Tarot. And you can also follow along with the hashtag Drop'em78 on Instagram. I'll have all of that linked in the description below. The deck I'm using is the Smith-Waite Tarot Centennial Edition. And here we see a group of characters with their wands, their sticks, their staffs, and they're fighting. So let's dive right into a quick definition of this card. It's really a card of competition and rivalry. We see them fighting amongst each other. And in a traditional tarot reading, if you're having tarot read to you, for you, this is often an indication that there's going to be some disagreement, some competition, or some rivalry going on, often in the workplace. But for me, since I primarily read tarot for myself, and I don't often have heated arguments with myself, I read this more as too many projects or too many ideas fighting for my attention at any given time. It's usually when I pull this card, it's a good idea for me to sit down and get clear on what I really want to work on. If that's something you struggle with, one of the best things you can do, at least in my experience, is something called a brain dump, where you sit down and make a list of anything and everything you think you need to do, you think you want to do. Just get it all out there on the page, and that alone is a very freeing feeling. Then walk away and come back and look through that list again. And usually by then you have a pretty good idea of what you actually want and need to be working on, as opposed to having all these ideas fighting for your attention, if that makes sense. So it's a good time to, if nothing else, sit down and get clear on where your priorities lay and what you want to work on, so these ideas aren't competing for attention in your head. Because this card is a pretty good depiction of what that feels like when I'm in that kind of a mental state. So a little bit different than your traditional definition, but I hope it helps somebody out over there. In its most positive view, this can be a card of discussion, of sharing different points of views and kind of making the whole idea in the community richer, because we have all these people coming from completely different points of view, from completely different areas of life, and all engaging in a productive, hopefully, discussion about a topic. Now, the detail that caught my attention today was the stance that everybody is taking. If you take a look, everybody has their feet firmly planted on the ground, a little more than shoulder width apart. So, assuming a very wide stance that helps them stand their ground in this fight. And I think that's a very good reminder for me to stand my ground in an argument. And to be able to do that, I have to know where I stand. I have to know my stuff. I have to be able to back that argument up. So taking the time to ground myself, to really think deeply about where I stand on a particular issue, helps me stand my ground in an argument where maybe my views are verbally attacked in the best of ways, of a good discussion kind of thing. But it's a good reminder that you need to know where you stand on an issue to be able to defend yourself intelligently. So that is the detail that caught my attention today and that I enjoyed exploring as I was sipping my coffee here this morning. And let's wrap things up with a discussion about how I would use a card like this in fiction writing. I'm a paranormal romance author who frequently uses tarot cards to inspire my writing. And the first thing I thought about is if I pull this card for a particular character, it's that this is a person who enjoys mental sparring, who enjoys arguing, sometimes just for argument's sake. We've all met these people who just enjoy to be controversial, who enjoy throwing something wild out there just to see what kind of rise, what kind of reaction they can get out of other people. So that was my first idea. And then secondly, it looks a little bit like they are practicing, like this is almost like a martial arts practice type thing. So that is certainly something I could weave into my story. So maybe one of my characters is into martial arts, or maybe both of them. Maybe that's how they met in a sparring match. That could be interesting. If we take it a little bit further, kind of zoom out, if you will, this could also spark an idea of there being disagreement about an issue in the community. Maybe it's about something minor, maybe it's about something major. How can that affect the story, and how can that affect our characters? What if they find themselves landing on opposite sides of an issue that is important to them both? So an example of this would be, let's say we're in a small town setting, and in this community they're talking about building a much needed hospital. But to build that hospital, it would have to be in an area that's currently full of local wildlife. This natural area, this nature preserve would have to be sacrificed for there to be room for this hospital to be built. There's advantages on both sides. So if our characters find themselves on opposite sides, how will they handle that? How will they resolve that? Can their relationship survive something like that? If not, what does it mean for where they were standing? So that could be interesting. Or, we could have our characters fighting directly. If I'm just fleshing out a character and the story is moving in a little bit too smoothly, this card might be a good reminder that it's time to up the tension and make them a little unhappy by having them break out into an argument because somebody pushed somebody's button, or there's an old emotional wound that's rearing its ugly head, or maybe it's a misunderstanding. Lots of different ideas to play with to make the story interesting and to keep moving the storyline and the relationship along with quite a few bumps in the road. Or we could have a character, if I'm doing like a past, present, future kind of spread, if this card pops up in the past, maybe they've had an argument or a disagreement within their family that made them stop contact with those people. What does that mean? How is the other partner going to take that? And is this maybe a time and a place to take the first steps toward a reconciliation? Or we can take it a generation further back. What if there was an agreement with this character's parents and their extended family, and that made them move away from this small town? And now at the beginning of the story, this is the first time our character is back in the place where they were born or the place that they came from, with maybe some extended family, some grandparents, some cousins, some aunts and uncles living here in the community. That could make for an interesting kind of backdrop for a romance novel. And then, of course, like if I'm just kind of fishing for a general idea for a story and I pull the Five of Wands, it could spark a reminder of a very popular romance trope, that of enemies to lovers. So maybe the characters start out as rivals, start out fighting over something, but in the end they find that they have way more in common than they have against each other, and end up finding themselves falling madly in love somewhere along the way. So lots of interesting ideas to pull from the Five of Wands. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and come back to the channel. Subscribe if you'd like. And tomorrow we're going to take a look at the next card in the Wand suits, and that is, of course, the Six of Wands. I will see you then.